today's video, we're going to be talking about Nintendo's next console. Not when is it coming out or about any of the leaks, but we're going to be talking about what it should entail, what games it will feature, and how it should make its impact in the gaming industry. Without any further ado, let's get into the video. Let's start off with the obvious. The hybrid model of the Nintendo Switch is a huge component in why it is a top-selling console of all time. The Switch pushed the line between how consumers can play video games. There was an inherent convenience being able to use your Switch as both a handheld and a home console that the other consoles didn't have the capacity to attain. Even in their next line of consoles, Sony and Microsoft somehow didn't tap into this market, probably to avoid a lawsuit, and stuck with making unsophisticated, albeit more competent versions of their former consoles. For one, Nintendo's next console probably won't deviate from the hybrid model. If it does, then that's confirmation that Nintendo is ran by heroin addicts. Two, the vital aspects of both handheld and docked mode will have to have more fidelity. This means a larger, more impressive, probably OLED screen for handheld mode, a longer lasting battery life while games are running, although this might offset with the system being able to run more powerful games, period. Better ergonomics of the handheld, better speakers, etc. As for docked or TV mode, obviously higher pixel capacities per frame and frame rates, less input delay, an Ethernet port, more USB, and maybe 2 HDMI ports. The basis for this video is going to be some of the things that I think Nintendo needs to change with their new console on both a subjective and an objective level. Let's start off with the home screen / the user interface. That's just gonna have to be overhauled. I was genuinely shocked at the amount of things that I was able to do via the Nintendo Switch home screen, such as Bluetooth connectivity. This is because the home screen is so bare bones and only gives you the basic necessities. The PS4 is a good example of what a modern user interface should entail. Obviously, the modern day necessities like being able to alter your sound and screen settings, being able to change your specific microphone output, being able to change the parameters and specificities of your notifications, stuff like that. Next, we should talk about some features that should be held on the next Nintendo console. These are not essential but desired features that I personally think should be on the next Nintendo system. We're going to start off with themes, as the Nintendo Switch was devoid of themes altogether. The one that we did get was a basic white screen. Really, yeah, nigga? You could replace this with a dark mode or invert the colors or turn on a grayscale. In my opinion, none of these qualify as actual themes and are merely changing the display colors. Home screen themes should be based on different backgrounds from different video games. There are tons of different home screen theme concepts and even new themes of the home screen in general. It would be cool to be able to rearrange the arrangement of different aspects composing the home screen. If Nintendo were to do this, I believe they would be the first console to have this feature. The second feature are achievements. I think trophies or achievements are something that incentivizes people to play a game further. Nintendo dabbled into this slightly. Out of the three major consoles, Nintendo is the only one to actually give rewards for completing challenges found in video games. The problem is that these achievements are a measly mission you can do by mistake that aren't tied to any of their main video games. Of course, in the sense that Nintendo doesn't use the actual achievements the video game developers place in their games. If Nintendo were to include trophies or achievements into their next system, they could tie it into the reward system that is in place for the Nintendo Switch. This could be as simple as it is now, leading to the purchasing of different custom profile pictures, or it could be extended into Nintendo Gold coins, although that one is unlikely, or even different themes for the harder challenges that are achieved by the player. The third feature would be streaming or recording. What we have on the Nintendo Switch is at most being able to clip 30 seconds of gameplay from your game. At the very least, you can edit your screenshots, but that's about as fancy as you can get with the Nintendo Switch's capture system. On the PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S, you can stream to YouTube and Twitch straight from the console. I'm sure having this feature on the new console won't be of utmost priority, but one that will make seeing and spreading Nintendo games all the more easy and accessible. The next main inclusion that I would like to go over is the output / technical competence of the console. Personally, I would like the next Nintendo console to at least perform to what an Xbox Series S is able to perform. This is a native 1440p with a 4K upscaler with native 60 FPS with an upper limit of 120 FPS. But guess what? Nintendo doesn't really give a shit about what I personally want. Knowing Nintendo, the next Nintendo console will be as strong as a PS4 if we're being realistic. The CEO of Activision, Bobby Kotick, was questioned on the power of the next generation Nintendo console after a corresponding line of questioning. He says that the specs are an important factor to consider when deciding whether or not they will be able to make Call of Duty for the Nintendo Switch. This leads me to consider the importance of the next Nintendo's console's technical competence, especially since Nintendo signed a contract with Microsoft forcing them to have Call of Duty on Nintendo platforms for the next 10 years come 2024. The Switch's lack of technical competence is one of its weakest aspects, which holds back a lot of its potential. Games would dip under 30 FPS. Features from third-party titles that were somehow able to be ported over to the Nintendo Switch in the first place were completely missing. The input delay is horrendous, and even the graphics of some games like Fortnite is on par with what the last generation of mobile phones were able to output. Not to mention the exclusion of lots of major third-party games altogether, and the very few that were ported over needing a cloud version, working against the entire concept of Nintendo Switch as a hybrid console. I'm personally tired of the art style of first-party Nintendo games being intentionally designed to reduce strain on the hardware. I mean, it's so obvious. I'm tired of having third-party games coming out late on the Nintendo Switch, so late that we can't take advantage of the deals that are on other platforms. And of course, I don't want to be forced to be content with the Switch's inability to perform even below market standard. From the leaks and information we can gather, it seems that some form of a DLSS upscaler will be used for the next Nintendo system, which is a step in the right direction. I personally think the technical fidelity of the next Nintendo console is the most important change that needs to be ascertained. But again, we already established that Nintendo doesn't give a shit about what I, or you for that matter, personally think. In all seriousness, this is the most important change next to the new gimmick of the new console that Nintendo will certainly strive to attain. Nintendo needs to be a console for all gamers, not just Nintendo gamers.
I'm Doug Bowser from Nintendo of America, and I'm thrilled to join you for today's Nintendo Direct. This is our chance to show the world we have games for every type of player on Nintendo Switch.
The easiest way to get more gamers, given the position that Nintendo is in, is to not be notorious for not being able to run games properly.
That's just the Switch, baby. That's that goofy, quirky little thing doing what it does best. Reminding us that Nintendo is very out of touch. It's fucking running off like 50-year-old hardware. It was dated when it released, and now it's even more dated now. I can rant about the Switch all day and night. I'm still shocked it's not using dial-up. I can't believe they even have a model that has an Ethernet port on it. I wouldn't even think they'd bother.
And Hyrule Warriors on Switch, it dropped into single digits. Like, I love the Switch, but it's not performing to the standard that we should be at this point.
Bayonetta 3 ambitiously targets 60 FPS but falls short with many detours to 45 FPS and below. The Switch port of Sonic Frontiers is drastically scaled back, running at or slightly below 30 FPS and suffering major object pop-in besides, which outlets like Digital Foundry made very clear in their tech review.
The standard for games is now becoming 60 frames per second, and the Switch, in many cases, can't retain a constant 30 frames.
Furthermore, the more high-demanding, more ambitious games shouldn't be left out because they won't run on the Switch. If the Switch is the best way to play, which on a conceptual level it should be, it needs to support an environment for all kinds of gamers. That means being able to run its own and high-demanding third-party titles competently. Nintendo Switch Online. Now we know, based on Nintendo's very own words, that Nintendo has every intention of keeping the online service of Nintendo Switch Online and porting it over to their next system. This will save them a large install base, and personally, I think it's a good move. However, some adjustments need to be made because Nintendo Switch Online is ass, just to avoid sugarcoating. Oh, this time around, Nintendo buys some actual servers for their main games so that there isn't a connection error once every 10 matches. Splatoon 2 and 3. Excuse me. Why is there absolutely no way for me to speak or even interact with the people who I added on my friends list? It makes entirely no sense why I can't message people or create a party chat to chat with people, a feature that has been on other consoles for the past 18 years, which is more time than a lot of Nintendo Switch owners have been alive. Nintendo, nobody is using that dumbass phone app to communicate with people. Say what you want about friend codes, love them or hate them, they allow you to change your in-game name for free. It's just that Nintendo thinks the sole purpose of adding friends is to see whether or not they're online and what games they're playing. That's next to useless. Again, messaging, notifications, and party chat brings people together in a coherent and organized manner. And those are just my personal issues with Nintendo Switch Online. And I think that I'm being very charitable, seeing as this criticism is contingent on the understanding that a party and messaging system will be locked behind an online subscription and wouldn't come into the console inherently. For instance, there's no way in fuck I still pay for PlayStation Plus, but I can still enter a voice party with my friends when I'm on the PS4. Anyways, the general public's issue with Nintendo Switch Online is the half-assed commitment of retro games. They either inconsistently add old titles to the Switch, or they add titles nobody wants. I commend them for adding Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time. However, how the fuck can it possibly run worse on the Switch than it did on the N64? Nintendo, if you're going to tap into this avenue of adding old games, then actually put a decent effort into your commitment. This is especially the case when emulation is easier than ever nowadays. And what happened to game trials? Is that something that still occurs for Nintendo Switch Online owners? I would not know. And I think that's a problem, seeing as I'm on the Nintendo Switch consistently playing Splatoon 3. So for the next console, I would actually love to see some DS and Wii games appear on the console, seeing as we're getting further and further away from those console initial release dates as we get further into the years. Dude, imagine if they had New Super Mario Bros. Wii on the Nintendo Switch 2, bro. Oh my gosh, I would get that in a heartbeat and I would never stop paying the subscription. Also, increasing the price of a certain NSO package isn't warranted due to the inclusion of DLC for a game not everybody has. When you do that for your literal #1 and 2 best-selling games on the platform, it's pretty evident you're doing it in an effort to maximize on profit. You know what's a better incentive to Nintendo Switch Online? Voice chatting with your friends, free monthly themes for the home screen, a percentage off of first-party Nintendo games as deal arises. Who am I kidding? This is Nintendo we're talking about. Their games never go on sale. But I'm serious, a sale in the eShop is a great incentive. And of course, the game trials was a good system that I don't think should have made a magical disappearance. But if they're still doing it, please correct me in the comment section down below. But me, as somebody who consistently goes on the Nintendo Switch and is an NSO owner, I don't think that I shouldn't know whether or not the game trials are still going. Now I want to get into the games. I personally think that Nintendo bolsters the best first-party games out of any of the companies. Nintendo is also a pretty good environment for indie developers, as we all know about the thousands of farm simulator games. On a serious note, I believe that backwards compatibility with the Nintendo Switch is a must. I mean, Nintendo, whether we think they need a new console put out soon or not, are in the middle of a very victorious reign. Nintendo wasn't only able to bounce back from the Wii U's failure and make a success out of the Nintendo Switch, it's the third most sold console of all time. Historically, when a console is successful, it's difficult to capitalize off of the success of said console with the preceding console. Think the PS4 to the PS5, Wii to the Wii U, Xbox 360 to Xbox One, PSP to PS Vita. However, if we look at this list, the consistency between these consoles are that they didn't innovate from one another, probably leading to a decline in sales. However, we are aware of the fact that Nintendo wants to do something that wasn't possible on the Switch with their new console. This is a massive step in the right direction. My point, however, is that it would be stupid to cut off the 125+ million players that Nintendo Switch already has. This new console will not only have to be backwards compatible to a degree that a Nintendo Switch user could port their entire system over to the new console, but also share lobbies with Nintendo Switch players. For instance, you would be able to play Splatoon 3 with Nintendo Switch players while using Nintendo's next console. Maybe this is asking too much, so at the very least, we need lots of flagship titles to be ported over. These flagship titles include both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I mean, imagine not being able to play either of those games come launch day of this new platform. I mean, I would be kerfuffled. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Mario Odyssey, Animal Crossing, Mario Wonder, Pokemon, Xenoblade, Splatoon 3, yeah, just all the flagship Nintendo Switch games, if not most of them. Of course, you want to have Nintendo Switch keep its individuality from this new console. If the new console isn't backwards compatible, then Nintendo is going to have to severely compensate by bringing us lots of flagship titles with the ability to carry over our progress in a coherent manner. I think 2 new major announcements should be made come launch day of the new console. One being a brand new Nintendo game. Personally, it feels like Super Mario Wonder is a game designed to stall out for a new 3D Mario game, but is a quality game in and of itself, sort of like Age of Calamity to Tears of the Kingdom. I also think Metroid Prime 4 is being saved for this console, which would be a great move seeing as that was first announced in 2017. Then of course, fans have been longing for a new Donkey Kong game, which I don't think would sell units like a new Mario or a Zelda game, but I do think it's good fan service. Maybe Mario Kart 9 with a brand new way to race that wasn't possible in the previous Mario Kart games. Mario Kart 8 is the biggest game on the Switch, and one of the most sold games ever. So it would be ridiculously foolish not to follow up on something that's successful early, seeing as the game is almost 10 years old already. Secondly, a major third-party release on the Nintendo Switch would have to be shown. Something like GTA or Call of Duty. Call of Duty is one of the biggest franchises that has been left out on Nintendo platforms for the last 10 years. Due to the Activision-Microsoft merger, Nintendo is in a contract which will obligate Call of Duty to be present on Nintendo platforms for the next 10 years. I'd assume this would be a selling point Nintendo uses for their next console. To recap, the next Nintendo console has very high expectations. It needs to be able to do something innovative that no other console before it was able to do. These are Nintendo's words. I think that whatever they do, the console needs to be both a home and portable console. The new console needs to be technically competent and should remain technically competent for a decent amount of time. Enough time to allow third-party games to be more abundant, first-party games to be more expansive, and of course the main reason being to create a more stable, thus enjoyable experience for the user. Backwards compatibility is a big one. At the very least, flagship titles need to appear along with the ability to transfer data from the Nintendo Switch. The online service needs to be a lot better. Online communication via voice chat, messaging, and rewards from video games must be something that appears on this console. We need better online maintenance, especially for something like Splatoon 3. A flagship online multiplayer title of Nintendo to be taken seriously amongst the gaming community. Better incentives to buy online, such as deals via the eShop or the game trials. And of course, expand on the retro games. Hopefully we see some Wii, Nintendo DS, or 3DS games appear. This console needs to feel modern and alive. We should be able to change specific things via the menu, like the home screen themes, character profiles having a description, etc., etc. The console needs to feel modern and not dated upon release, albeit innovative, sort of like the Nintendo Switch was. Guys, if you agree, make sure to hit the thumbs up button. If you disagree, let me know in the comment section down below. Make sure to tap in on the Discord server, and I will catch you guys on the next one.